Any opening statement, Senator Padilla?
Nais ko lamang pong batiin ang chairman sa napakaganda po ninyong talumpati at ito po ay talagang pinag-uukulan po ninyo ng atensyon ang nangyaring pananalanta ng pandemya at ang tinamaan po nito ay ang edukasyon ng ating mga kabataan. At narinig ko rin po yung patungkol sa pagsasaayos ng K-12. Napakahalaga po nun. At siyempre po, katulad po ninyo, ako po ay nananawagan din sa ating mga kasama sa edukasyon na atin pong suportahan ang sinasabi ng chairman po. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very much, Senator Padilla. Senator Pia, and then Senator Binay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning also to our Vice President, the Secretary of the Department of Education. Mr. Chairman, very short statement. I am extremely excited about the opening of face-to-face classes. As the Chairman knows, I have been pushing for this months after we went into the pandemic. Our children have suffered greatly because of the closure. There are no ways to really make up for the loss of time. To a certain extent, it was beyond their control. But to another extent, I regret that we did not move fast enough to really give them the opportunity to go back to school. And now that many private schools have opened, I'm very happy to see anyone who has young children, who has friends with young children, the joy in their face is apparent. Just to see their friends, their mental well-being is addressed, and to be able to understand their teachers more because of the face-to-face setting cannot be compared with the online environment that sadly has been the reality for almost 2 years, Mr. President. So I'm looking forward to the opening of the public school as well. And I just like to put on record, I have not heard any report, but I just wanted the Secretary to know that the Senate put in 2.6 billion to cover the expenses of the implementation of face-to-face. No? So wala naman ako narinig na may problema on that note, but of course we'd like to hear if there are. But that amount has, I hope it has been made available to the department and to the schools. And we also put in additional 100 million for public school health facilities, which includes hand washing. Not sure if it would be covered in the presentation, but one of the recommendations of both Deped and DOH was to improve the health facilities in the schools, no, yung hand washing and even the bathroom facilities, which are sorely lacking in many schools. So we would be happy to help in that regard, given the clear scenario that we are facing. There's much more to say, but I will hold my comments, which really are comments from the last few years that we've been overseeing the development of the education sector. Suffice it to say that we are looking forward to the opening of school. And one more point, as your chairman of the Committee on the SDGs, Innovation and Futures Thinking, it is always my job to ensure that we see the bigger picture. I'd like to put on record that Secretary Carl Chua of the previous administration had mentioned that 1.9 trillion pesos in losses are incurred each year because of the closure of school. I'll repeat, 1.9 trillion, because the schools are actually economic hubs. So when the schools were closed, all the food outlets, the karinderya, the carts that sell, whatever snacks the kids eat, and the small suppliers, the school supplies, ball pen, notebook, paper, and all up the supply chain were all affected. So the opening of schools would also be good for our economy, Mr. Chairman. Anyway, on that note, I will end here and look forward to the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With the indulgence of Senator Binay and Senator Francis, we would like to call on first, with your permission, Vice President Sara Duterte, and we're very honored and privileged that she's with us today virtually. She is performing 3 jobs at all at the same time, as our Vice President, as our Secretary of Education, and as a mother, also monitoring the opening of classes this coming Monday. So we call on Vice President Sara Duterte. VP, you're on mute.
Vice President, as our Secretary of Education, as a mother, so monitoring the opening of classes this coming Monday. So we call on Vice President Sara Duterte.
Thank you, Senator Binay and Senator Tolentino. Sorry, I have to go first because I have another equally important meeting for education at 11 a.m. And get well soon to Senator Binay. To our distinguished members of this committee headed by the staunch supporter for education, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, my team from the Department of Education, ladies and gentlemen, maayong buntag sa inyong tanan, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Allow us to thank Senator Win and the members of the Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture for inviting us in this Senate hearing. We in the Department of Education are grateful for this opportunity to share with you our preparations for the school opening and to gather your suggestions and advice for the Department of Education. We are pleased to inform you that despite the challenges, we are ready for this year's school opening as articulated in the Department Order 34 or the school calendar and activities for school year 2022-2023. Since I assumed office last July 1 of this year, we immediately prepared and put to task my execom to focus on ensuring a smooth opening of the in-person classes come August 2022. Nandyan pa rin po yung mga problema ng mga nakaraang taon, pero hindi po tayo titigil sa paghanap ng mga solusyon sa mga problema na yan sa susunod na 6 na taon. With all your help in the Senate, I think we will be able to turn around the quality of basic education in our country in the next 6 years. Despite the long-standing issues that Deped faces, especially on the shortage of classrooms and teachers, and the effects of calamities such as typhoons and the recent earthquakes, we are doing everything to address these within our means together with your support and the entire Filipino community. We take comfort with the knowledge that our frontliners in the field, our teachers, school heads, school division superintendents, and regional directors are making their utmost efforts to allow our learners to return safely in schools by August 2022. In fact, many of our private schools have already opened last July and are continuing to open every day before August 2022. Consequently, as part of the transition to in-person classes, blended learning shall still be implemented, and we are continuing to study the implementation of blended learning as a permanent mode of instruction for basic education. However, come November 2, the full implementation of 5 days in-person classes is expected as well for all public and private schools. We assure our parents that as we participate in the Transforming Education Summit 2022 in the United Nations, hopefully with the presence of President Marcos in the Leaders' Day, we will be doubling our efforts to provide your children the kind of education they deserve. Daghang salamat. Maraming salamat. Mayong buntag usab sa inyong tanan.
Thank you, Vice President Sara, and thank you very much for assuring the public of our smooth and safe opening of schools. We're all waiting for that, and the survey will show that almost as high as 90% of our parents want to open our schools. But thank you very much for your presence.
Mr. Chair, permission to leave.
Yes, VP. You're represented ably by the whole team. I can all see them here physically. So we'll be fielding questions and getting briefings from them.
Yes, and we truly appreciate advice and suggestions from the honorable senators. Thank you, Senator Pia, Senator Francis, Senator Binay, and Senator Gatchalian. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat at sa oras po ninyo para sa basic education ngayong araw na ito.
Thank you very much. With that, we continue with our opening statements. We call on Senator Binay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and magandang umaga sa ating Vice President Sara Duterte, and maraming salamat dun sa concern sa atin. To the whole Deped family, Mr. Chairman, if you remember it correctly, yung last 2 years ago, yung first time na tayo nag-quarantine, it was also a basic education hearing. At ngayon naman, first hearing ng basic education, naka-quarantine tayo ulit pero positive na. But moving forward, just a short manifestation, Mr. Chairman. Alam nat, I think during the previous Congress, we've attended almost all your committee hearings, and together with Senator Pia Cayetano, we've been pushing for the face-to-face classes of our students. And finally, nandito na tayo ngayon. kumbaga sigurado na matutuloy na itong face-to-face. Gusto lang din natin malaman kung gaano kahanda ang ating DepEd family pagdating dito sa pagpasok ng ating mga estudyante na face-to-face na yung module. And I think malaking advantage din na alam naman natin na napakalaki ng problema ng ating educational system. Even before the pandemic, malaki na yung problema, lalo pa itong nadagdagan because of COVID-19. But sa aking tingin, the mere fact that the Vice President of the Philippines is on top of our problems in education, malaking, kumbaga, tulong ito para unti-unti na natin mabigyan ng solusyon ang problema natin sa edukasyon. Yun lang po, Mr. Chairman, and maraming salamat.
Thank you, Senator Nancy, and I can attest that Senator Pia and Senator Nancy Binay were never absent in any of our basic education hearings, and they were also staunch supporters of going back to face-to-face classes. So later on, we'll hear the preparation of Deped. Of course, we all want to go back to face-to-face, but we also want to see and be comforted with the preparation conducted by Deped. So we would like to hear that later on. Before we go into the meat of our discussion, let me call on Senator Francis Tolentino for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no more opening statement. I understand you have a full load today, so we just let the other resource person say the piece, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Francis. So we go to the meat of our discussion today. We have two items on.
Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Yes, Senator Pia. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Just a clarification, kasi when I was reading my notes, I know that we pushed for 2.6 billion for the safe opening of the classes, but my staff just informed me that na-move pala yon sa unprogram. Baka mamaya maghanap si Secretary at yung team niya, no? Nung amount na yon, yun na nga. But it still has a chance, no, of being available to them because it's in the unprogram funds. So just to clarify that statement that I made, Mr. Chairman.
The veteran finance person of DepEd, Yusek Ann, is here, so she can enlighten us later on that account.
Okay.
So with that, we have two items. One is the Basic Education Organizational Meeting, in which, of course, Deped will introduce to us the new team that will move our basic education system.